friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kayla, and if you're not new, thanks for coming back. Always happy to have you. I'm very excited for today's video, which is going to be some dark academia book recommendations. If you're new here, I like to do a lot of book writing and lifestyle content here on this channel, so if any of those things interest you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and think about sticking around to hang out with us. I have been quite enjoying making videos like this recently on my channel, which are recommendation list videos of books that I think you should read if you like a particular thing, like the Disney Princess series I'm doing, or like if you like a certain vibe or certain season, just books that I think people should read and give me the opportunity to share stories that I love or that I think other people would enjoy. Today we have one that I'm very excited about, and that is Dark Academia. I have been trying to rack my brain and figure out while I was getting ready if dark academia is a genre or just a vibe. I think it's not a genre because you can't go to a bookstore and go to the dark academia section. So I think it's more of a mood, a vibe of literature. And I think my understanding of dark academia may not be the traditional sense of dark academia. I think it's pretty close, but there are some things that I see or read and I associate with dark academia that maybe others do not. For me, dark academia is something that you read on like a cold, misty night. It takes place with a school or relates to a school, an academy, a library, particularly London or England. I associate with dark academia the Victorian era, those kind of like straight-laced corseted dresses with the poofiness and the whole vibe. Mysteries I associate with dark academia, things like apothecaries and rainy weather and snow and cold, I all associate with dark academia, which I think pretty consistently matches with this traditional definition of dark academia. But I don't know if everybody like reads those things and are like, ooh, dark academia. Right now it is February 16th. It is my dad's birthday, so happy birthday, Dad. But I always associate this time of year with dark academia. I mentioned it in my February TBR, but like late January, February, like kind of a little later winter months feel very dark academia for me. I feel like kind of there are like cyclical vibes throughout the year, throughout the seasons. This is sounding so weird as I say it out loud, but for example, I feel like beginning of fall, like September, early October is like very cozy fall. End of October, November is like darker, kind of creepier fall with Halloween. The beginning or end of February, or end of November, beginning of December is more like cozy winter time, and then January and February are kind of like the darker part of winter time, right? So I feel like it's a great time to read dark academia style novels. I tend to gravitate towards these kinds of things, all kind of leading up to where spring returns and you go back to like cottagecore, light academia kind of vibes. So for me, this is like peak dark academia season, and I wanted to put together a list because I've been listening to dark academia ambiance. I'll have some of my favorites listed down below for you guys in the description box if you want to read these books and have some dark academia vibes going on. It's been really great. Let's dive into some books that give me dark academia vibes that I really love and I'm really excited about. I have quite a few, so I'm going to try and be brief about this, and I forgot a couple. So I actually have a lot of them compared to my Cinderella retellings recommendations video. I actually have a lot of them. Like I said, this part of the year, this time of year, oh, I can't even lift the list. The first book, I've never heard of this book and it has not been on my radar anywhere. I haven't seen anybody talk about this. The Dante Club, a novel by Matthew Pearl. I'm just gonna see when this came out because it's probably, it doesn't feel, okay, yeah, this is a very old book. This came out in 2003, but I live in Boston if you didn't know, but this book takes place in Boston in 1865, and there is a serial killer running amok in Boston, and there are a series of murders that all reflect scenes from Dante's Inferno. And there are some first Dante scholars in America that are studying these murders and trying to help solve the mystery alongside Boston police. And we have people like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Oliver Wendell Holmes, James Russell Lowell, and J.T. Fields, who are literary geniuses and scholars that are helping to solve these murders. I think just like the Boston 1865 is kind of like later Victorian, but still kind of that energy. The literary aspect, the scholars, feels very dark academia to me. This murder mystery theme feels very dark academia to me. It just feels like something you would read on a cold, like rainy, snowy night. I should, I guess, add that like a literary aspect also feels dark academia. Okay, the next book I actually don't have my copy of, but it is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kiersten White. I read this book a couple years ago and I absolutely loved it. It is a retelling of the Frankenstein novel. It follows Elizabeth Frankenstein, who marries Victor Frankenstein, and how she kind of grew up with him and kind of always knew that he was a dark and twisted character, and how that evolves throughout their relationship as they grow up, as they get married. It's very dark, very creepy, but it has Kiersten White's fantastic writing style. She writes so beautifully. She builds worlds in such an amazing way. It takes place obviously in Switzerland and Germany, which kind of is related to that London kind of vibe. It's very misty, rainy, cold, creepy. She's walking through kind of like muddy streets in a Victorian era dress. It just feels very dark academia to me. It's a little bit creepy. It's dark for sure. She's kind of solving this mystery and putting these puzzle pieces together. So good. It is a shorter novel. It's about 230 pages and it moves really quickly, so you can fly through that in one night if you really wanted to. The next book I actually haven't read. This has been on my list forever. It's been on my autumn TBRs for so long, and maybe I will finally get to it this year, and that is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This is the first book in the All Souls trilogy. It takes place in Oxford, England, in the Bodleian Library. I studied abroad in Oxford. I loved me the Bodleian Library. I think about that library in my dreams quite a bit. I miss it. It, for me, is like a quintessential dark academia place. A library in Oxford and England, in the cold and the rain and the mist. I also happened to be in Oxford when they were filming the Discovery of Witches series, which I think is on HBO or something, but I was there when they were filming it and I was just like, yes. It follows Diana Bishop, who is a descendant of witches and a scholar in Oxford, and she unearths this like enchanted alchemical scroll book manuscript thing, and she's like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with this, and she tries to kind of like banish and hide it, but she has just set a chain of events unfolding throughout England and Oxford and all of these mystical worlds, and she has to kind of undo what she's done. It brings in vampires, I think, and I want to say werewolves, but it might just be vampires. It is a trilogy. It is romantic. It is very academic. It has the misty scene setting. It's in England. It has a library. This book I've talked about many a time on my channel. I love this book with everything that I have. I truly do. This is one of my favorite series, and I've actually been talking about doing a like read along with me for this series, especially because I just read the 5th one, which is up there, and I did a review for earlier this year in January, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I kind of went back and forth on whether or not this was dark academia, but I decided it definitively is, based on the criteria for dark academia I have made. Truly Devious follows Stevie Bell, who is an amateur mystery solver who is accepted to Ellingham Academy, which is an academy for gifted young people that have special talents. Stevie's talent is solving murders, so she goes to Ellingham to solve a century-old murder about the founding family at Ellingham Academy, who's the founder's the founder's wife and daughter went missing and were later found dead. They never found the daughter though, so Stevie sets out to find that. At the same time, there are murders unfolding amongst her own classmates while she's there, so she's kind of solving 2 murders in one. It takes place in Vermont. Very dark. Very fall vibes, very misty, very cold. You know, they lose power a lot of times in snowstorms and things like that. There's a mystery aspect. We're at an academy. Steve spends a lot of time in the library. What more could we ask for in a dark academia book? It is fast-paced, it is gripping, it's YA, so if you're looking for less of a literary fiction aspect or a elevated adult fiction, this is a great series. It's cozy, it's a little bit dark, but not scary, right? And you just want to solve this puzzle alongside the person. I just imagine reading this like by candlelight up in Vermont would be so much fun. Okay, this next one I haven't read yet, and I've been putting this on my polls. I have been trying. People don't want me to read it, and that's okay. And that is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. From what I understand of this book, having not read it, is it follows the great, like 3 or 4 times great granddaughter of Sherlock Holmes, Charlotte Holmes. She goes to this academy in England, not in England, an academy in Connecticut. In my brain, I'm just gonna say it's in England because that fits a little bit better, especially because the guy character is playing on a rugby scholarship, which is not really a thing here in Connecticut. But she goes to this academy, and there's a mystery afoot at this academy, and of course, who else should solve it but Sherlock Holmes? It's a series, so that's one thing that is holding me back from reading this. Truly Devious is a series, but now all the books are out. I think all the books are out for this as well, but something about it just doesn't feel right yet. It doesn't feel ready, but I think that fall New England feel, London and New England feel like good dark academia settings now that I'm realizing and looking through my pile. We have a mystery, we have Sherlock Holmes, which is very literary reference. Next, this book I also read and recently in late December, and I think I talked about it on my channel. I don't remember, but it's from one of my favorite authors, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This is, I don't want to say a retelling, but it's like a kind of a blend of fact and fiction. It follows Audrey Rose, who's living in England during the time of the terrible happenings of Jack the Ripper and his serial murders and mutilations of women throughout England, well, throughout London. Audrey Rose is kind of studying to be like an autopsy medical examiner, but it's London in the 1800s, so that's like kind of frowned upon. So we have that academic vibe, right? Audrey Rose is studying. We have a murder mystery. We're in London. We're in the 1800s. So Audrey Rose is trying to solve the mysteries of the Jack Ripper murders by examining the bodies and trying to piece together clues and where Jack the Ripper is striking at different times. She is starting to think that it might be someone that she knows or is familiar with, and she has a handsome Thomas Cresswell is the love interest that's also studying under her uncle this autopsy medicine, and they are working together to solve the murders of the Jack the Ripper series. It's not super factually accurate, I will say, but it is a good dark academia read. You're trying to solve it along with her, trying to figure out the puzzle pieces of who it could be. I had my suspicions, but they were debunked pretty quickly. But we have London, we have a Victorian kind of setting, 1800s. We have an academic here, we have something studying, a scholar, right? We have a murder mystery, cold, misty, dark kind of England. We're just creeping around at night. There's actually a whole series about this, so they follow Houdini and Dracula and a couple of other people in the following books that I haven't read, and I don't know that I will, but I really did like Stalking Jack the Ripper. It moves pretty quick. You kind of fly through it trying to figure out the puzzle pieces before they do. These books I'm going to kind of loop together because they're by the same author, though they are different premises. We have Gallant by V.E. Schwab and A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. These for me felt very dark academia, particularly A Darker Shade of Magic because it takes place in London, and there are different versions of London. There's that magic. I think there are some libraries incorporated. I haven't read it. It just felt dark academia to me. Gallant, for me, it feels like dark academia just looking at this color scheme of this cover, right? We feature letters in here in a manner called Gallant. Gallant is about this girl named Olivia Pryor who's an orphan. I think she's an orphan. Her mother has definitely died. She finds her mother's journals and is reading through them. Over and over again as a child, her mother told her never to go to this mystical place called Gallant, but she receives a letter urging her to go there. And by the title, I think we can assume that she goes to Gallant. There she finds her family's manor and kind of this mystery to unravel, which makes it feel dark academia to me. There's a bit of magic, I believe, in here. We have, I think from the first couple of pages I read, that it was in England, but I could be wrong. But it has this, like, she starts in a academy or a school. Everything is very gray, very drab, very kind of lonely. We have this sort of mystery to unfold, letters, journals, all sorts of things that just felt like a good dark academia vibe for me. I would really like to read this one. I had started to read this over the summer, and I was on a beach trying to read this book, and I was like, not the right time to read this. So we're gonna try this again for dark academia's sake. We have 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. This is about a girl named January Scholar. The literary academic scholar vibe. Her last name is literally Scholar. She grew up kind of a lonely existence. She lived at this manor house. Her father was employed by a man finding mythical artifacts and interesting historical figures and things, and she discovers some magical ones and doors these different worlds in a book that tells her of a secret of being able to travel between these doors and going on all these adventures, which is really what January is longing for. This one just feels dark academia to me because of like this artifact museum quality. It ties in with the kind of scholarly like academic institution vibe for me. This one I think is loosely dark academia. I am currently reading this right now, so I will let you know if the dark academia improves, but this has a little bit more of a magical quality than some of the other dark academia books that we've found. This I think falls more into fantasy than like mystery thriller fiction we've been talking about. Okay, this is a classic and I don't have it. I actually have been boycotting this book for a little bit because there was a period of my life where I had to read this book at least once a year, if not multiple times a year for school, and that was Frankenstein. I read it my junior year of high school, my senior year of high school, twice my freshman year of college, and then once my sophomore year of college. And by the time I got to sophomore year, I was like, I don't even need to read the book. I know all the important quotes. I know what happens. We're good. Obviously, we talked about The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. The true original classic story, Frankenstein, I think is very, very much dark academia, right? We have this European setting in Sweden, Germany. We have this man who is trying to study and be a scholar and do these like dark, creepy things by reanimating a body. It's rainy, it's snowy, it's cold, it's creepy. He's studying, right? There's kind of this mystery component while he's trying to, like, his monster starts wreaking havoc and people are trying to figure it out and how does he conceal that, right? I think Frankenstein is like a great cozy up on a rainy day kind of creepy book, but again, not really necessarily scary, I don't think. Like, should I be afraid? I'm wondering if I should classify Frankenstein as scary. I personally am not afraid of Frankenstein, but I think it is a little bit creepy and it's kind of like a thriller a little bit. And I think it's good for those dark, cozy days. This next book I have, Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, Stalking Jack the Ripper, and this one are all kind of related as like featuring young female characters that want more for themselves than their society will allow them to have. And that is Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. I picked up last year and I haven't read, but from what I understand of this book, it's about this girl who's living kind of in 1800s. I want to say London, Edinburgh. Okay, so Scotland. She wants to study medicine and anatomy, but that is like big no-no. She needs help because she's not allowed into the actual lessons, but if she can take and pass the medical exam, they'll allow her to kind of study and be a doctor. But to do that, she can't go to the lessons. She needs somebody that can help her. And I believe he goes to the lessons in her place, but I think they also dig up corpses together and explore the corpses together. And then they kind of unravel sort of a mystery in Edinburgh's cemeteries. I think it's interesting. We have that UK vibe, rainy, misty. We have an academic situation. We have like a mystery, creepy thriller aspect. Dark academia. The Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare next. I'm currently reading this book. I'm about 125 pages in. It's a reread for me. I used to love this series as a kid. This is part of the Infernal Devices, which is like in the Shadowhunters universe, but separate from the Mortal Instruments. In this, Tessa Gray comes to London from New York, and she is looking for her brother. Once she gets there, she learns she has this kind of magical ability to shape change into other people or other creatures kind of thing. She can assume their body and their form and intimately understand their lives. There she's working with some shadow hunters to find her brother first of all, and to kind of stop this guy called the Magister, who's really just trying to steal Tessa's power for his own game. At one point in the book, he like tries to marry her when they never met. It was just very weird. But there's like a steampunk vibe also to this, where we get the clockwork situation. People are killing mundanes and humans and adding kind of like cogs and clockwork pieces to sort of reanimate them into like steampunk cyborgs. It's very interesting. But again, we have the Victorian era. It's like the 1800s. We're in London, rainy, mystery, dark. We have the Institute, where the shadow hunters live and study and become demon hunters, where Tessa is staying for the time being. There's a big old library in the Institute. We have an academic institution and a mystery that we have to solve. I'm gonna call it dark academia. The next book I don't have, but I do want to talk about, and that is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. It takes place, you guessed it, in London, and it's a dual timeline novel. It follows one character in the modern day who is going to celebrate her 10-year wedding anniversary, when a couple days before discovers that her husband's been having an affair. She has kind of put her whole life on hold so he could rise in his career and she could be a supportive wife to him, only to realize she's been cheating on her. So she goes to London on this solo trip. It was supposed to be their anniversary trip, and she goes to London by herself, and she's gonna figure out her next steps. When she's there, she goes looking for artifacts in the Thames River, and she finds a little glass vial with a seal on it, and she decides to go do a whole research project about this, and turns into this research adventure, which ties in our other timeline, which takes place in, I want to say, 1700s England, of an apothecary who is helping women poison men that have wronged them. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that's a little dark. But these women could go to this apothecary who would also provide medicinal herbs and remedies. But if need be, if a woman was being wronged by a man, this apothecary would also dole out some poisons that she could use to take care of this man. So we follow these kind of dual timelines as they intersect together. We watch the main character in the modern timeline figure out what happened with this apothecary and kind of solve this unsolved serial murder from 300 years ago. And we also watch the apothecary kind of meet her end as she's like, oh no, I've been caught, I've been realized. And it was a really, really good book. It was kind of short, it was around 250 pages. It moved pretty quickly, and I really enjoy it. She also has another book, this is by Sarah Penner. She has another book coming out this year called The London Silence Society that I'll also be wanting to read, because that kind of also has dark academia vibes. I apologize because this video is getting quite long. Let me know if you want me to do a part 2. I had at least 7 more that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like this video is also getting quite long. So if you would like to see a part 2 of more dark academia reads to get you through this kind of dreary season, let me know in the comments down below. What are some of your favorite dark academia reads? Let me know. If there's any that I missed or that I should check out, let me know. If you want to see part 2 and you want more dark academia book recommendations, let me know. I'd be happy to do another video like this. If there's another vibe you want recommendations for, let me know. I will continue to do like the Disney ones that I've been talking about on my channel, and I think I'm also going to do a cottagecore one when the springtime rolls around. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found a new book you want to read or check out, and I will see you in my next one and over on Instagram at RoyReadingCo. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and happy reading. Bye bye.